Morning, I swear a lot.
It is 1:08 in the PM, and you're listening to The Foreman. I'm your host, Foreman, and we beat Fear and Hunger recently. Yeah, we beat Fear and Hunger Termina. That's done, it's out of the way, finally beat it. It was traumatic and a hell of a journey doing one game after the other, two after one, but hey, I did it. And at the, well, spoilers, I guess, for Fear and Hunger, first of all, 1 and 2. We're going to be talking spoilers for the game and the series. I assume that'll be given, because I think the title of this is going to be in some reference to the endings. So if you're not prepared to hear details about the endings, or spoilers for the series, maybe watch this one later, yeah? But at the end of the final episode of Termina, I expressed a sentiment that the ending felt a bit flat. Now, at the time, I expressed that I felt it was because it didn't feel very well set up, like it felt like it had never been referenced, and we kind of ignored the whole Termina festival and Rare the Sulphur Moon shit, and just kind of went for a machine god. But I wasn't sure if that, even as I said it, I was like, no, that's not quite what it is. Like, in my head I was thinking this, I was like, no, that's not quite why this doesn't feel quite as satisfying. Also, people did mention in the comments that if you play as different characters, like a Bella or Olivia, for instance, you do actually get a bit more setup on Ralia and Logic and all of that jazz. So, cool, good to know that it does get more setup in other playthroughs, and I want to preface everything I'm going to say today by saying that Termina Ending A is not bad. It's not a bad ending, it's not a shit ending. I'm not saying it's not good, I'm not saying it's not suitable, I'm not saying it doesn't work, I'm just saying the general sentiment I'm expressing is that it, A, fell a bit flat for me, and B, didn't feel as good as Fear and Hunger 1's ending. I think that's kind of the key point. Or Fear and Hunger 1's equivalent ending, I should say. Is that also ending A? I just want to make sure we're all on the same page here and there are no misunderstandings. Yes, it is ending A, the God of Fear and Hunger, yeah. So I'm basically talking about ending A for Fear and Hunger 1 and ending A for Fear and Hunger 2, comparing the two because they are extremely comparable. So, I personally feel that ending A in Fear and Hunger 1 is a lot better than ending A in Fear and Hunger 2, though I would like to also point out that in terms of a gameplay and general game feel perspective, Termina's ending sequence, like the white bunker leading into what is essentially the 3 boss fights at the end of that, it is way better than Fear and Hunger 1's, right? The, I don't know what you'd call, I can't even remember what that place is called anymore. The Heart of Darkness, that's it. The Heart of Darkness is a painful place to go through. It's not fun. It's actually extremely irritating, especially with all of the swinging pendulums for one-shot death, the spikes coming out of the floor, which can do a lot of damage very quickly and are hard to avoid, the bugs on the floor, which can be negated through certain skill advancement, but guess what, I didn't have that, and the double-headed crow mauler who can just summon a flock of crows to peck your eyes out and then your run's over. And he could do that first turn, and there'd be no way to stop him. All these things are extremely annoying. Termina, by contrast, the only run-ending thing there are the flame troopers, and yeah, they'll catch you the first time around because you don't know what to expect. But from that point onwards, you do know what to expect, and they're not difficult to figure out, as it were. You just have to be careful. I think they caught me out one more time, and it was honestly because I was distracted and not really paying attention to my surroundings, so he caught me out, right? Like, it didn't feel unfair, because if the first death is unfair, but it's intentionally unfair. It's the setting of the game, where it's like, shit will kill you, you know, cope, as it were. But intentionally unfair first death is kind of okay if from that knowledge you can then avoid it in the future, like the pitfall traps in the woods, right? Like the first time you're like, what the fuck, where'd that even come from? And then you see the markings on the floor because you're looking at that area because that's where you fell, and you're like, oh, I see the wood and planks and stuff now, okay, I'll avoid that. And that's what makes that okay. The landmines are completely fair. Just use your fucking eyes. Like, you can figure that out on the first time if you're not an idiot, and unfortunately I was an idiot, but I am getting off topic here. The point is, Heart of Darkness is a painful location, and I didn't enjoy it in the slightest. The actual fight against the God of Fear and Hunger, it's alright, I guess. I think Logic's better, to be honest. Maybe not even necessarily from a gameplay perspective, but the music used in the 2 last boss fights of Termina, right? against the Kaiser and against Logic, the music just knocks it out of the fucking park. Makes both those fights really cool. Kaiser is a fun fight. I actually like how if you take out both of his arms, he gets more dangerous, because the game kind of punishing you almost for just resorting to the same tactics, where it's like, you don't need to take out the snake arm. You don't. There is no reason to take out the snake arm. It doesn't heal him for that much. Your DPS far outweighs his ability to heal himself, but by taking out that arm, you prompt the black orb phase, and sucks to be you, idiot. Don't cut shit off for the sake of it. Actually, your attacks have to have purpose, and if they don't, you'll be punished. I think that's pretty fair. So yeah, the ending sequence, gameplay-wise, of Fear and Hunger 2, of Termina, is vastly superior to Fear and Hunger 1. I'm going to go ahead and put that out there. But from a story and emotional perspective, and general experience of narrative, Ending A in Fear and Hunger 1 is way better, in my opinion. Why is that? Well, it comes down to two, I believe I've boiled it down to two facets. Maybe there'll be more as I wax lyrical about it, but on the surface, two facets. One is an emotional aspect. Two is, honestly, a more practical, pragmatic, and narrative design kind of perspective, which kind of isn't Fear and Hunger 2's fault, but would be the fault of the writer, considering they wrote for both games, right? But let's start with the first one, the emotional aspect. In Fear and Hunger 1, in order to achieve Ending A, you need to save the girl, you need to save the kid from the cage, and get her to the Heart of Darkness, and get her to the end of there, where she transforms into the God of Fear and Hunger, and you have your boss fight. After which, you know, she's a god, you can't kill her, she's turning into a god, there's nothing you can do, and you have a sequence where you are basically dying, and she's like, you know, she remembers the kindness that you provided for her. There are many points throughout the game, you know, you give her a dagger to defend herself, and it's like the first time anyone's ever given her anything, so she's surprised and grateful. This is like the first time she's experienced kindness in her life, and you're giving it to her, like, hey, here's a knife to protect yourself. And there's the doll that you can give her as well, which makes her happier too, and you can talk to her throughout the game and encourage her, and be like, you're doing great, it's okay, I'll protect you. A couple times in my run, she had a panic attack in the mines, and, you know, you calmly talk her down, and like, it's okay, we can keep going, and she clearly appreciates it. And in ending, which one is it? I think it's ending D, where if you go into the void, you find Moonless and the kid together, and like, you know, Moonless is protecting the kid. Point is, you have a lot of positive emotional experiences with the kid, which culminates in that final boss fight, and then as you're dying, after the fight with the God of Fear and Hunger, she remembers what you've done for her, and she's like, you know, just... she's more merciful. Point is, you're not left suffering forever. She puts you out of your misery. And, like, even in the boss fight itself, she will remember the nice things you did for her, and she will skip attacks. Like, she'll skip her turns and stuff. All of this, over the course of a reasonably long game, considering it's an indie RPG on rpgmaker, I personally developed a bond with the kid. I felt a genuine desire to protect her, not just because I wanted to achieve a certain ending, because to begin with, I got Ending D, and I was like, yeah, that'll do for the video game, for the series. I'm happy with that, that's fine. And I was pretty pissed off when she died in that sequence, but due to gameplay, not due to story. But yeah, and then I went on to do Ending A, the God of Fear and Hunger, where I would actually need her alive. But throughout the entire series, I was doing everything I could to keep her alive, like, because I wanted to keep her alive, because I didn't want her to die, because she was this poor kid in the dungeons of Fear and Hunger, of all places, like the least appropriate place for a child to be. And I'm like, I've got to protect her, I've got to keep her alive. You know, it's dumb, but it was an emotional connection I had with it. By contrast, Ending A in Termina is Relia, who is that girl who just kind of shows up sometimes and sprinkles little blue moths around and kind of leads you in directions. Now, once again, this is a situation where if you were playing as, say, Olivia, probably most likely Olivia would be the most important one here, but because I did do a little wiki dive after I beat the game, because I was like, okay, I want to actually find out some stuff. But my point is that there is very little to no emotional connection to Relia. Like, none. Which kind of leads into this whole lack of build-up thing that kind of made Ending A in Termina fall flat for me. You have an emotional investment in Ending A of the God of Fear and Hunger 1, because you've protected that child and brought her all the way there. She's been with you, like, if you're like me, you know, and you got this ending through an organic playthrough. In an organic playthrough, you probably let her out at the start of the game. In a less organic playthrough, you'd probably wait until you're about to go into the Heart of Darkness and then let her out. But I didn't do that. I had her for like the whole game, escorting her around and trying to keep her safe. You have plenty of time to develop a bond. But in Termina, there's nothing. I don't care about Relia. People in that series die all the fucking time. Like, if we came to like one of the bunkers and she was like, this way, and then Chonga fucking threw her off a cliff, I'd be like, oh well, I don't know her. I have no reason to care. Like, there's been no establishment here. So, from an emotional perspective, like, ending A in Fear and Hunger 1 is vastly superior to Fear and Hunger 2. Fear and Hunger 2 just falls flat. Ending A does, at least, in my opinion, in that department. The second aspect, and like I said, this is unfair to Termina as a game, but justified criticism for the writer. The second reason why Fear and Hunger 1's ending is better than Fear and Hunger 2's is because we've done this before. We've done almost the exact same thing before. It is literally the same ending. Ending A, the god of Fear and Hunger, in Fear and Hunger 1. You fight a god, it's obvious, you know, you beat the god, but you can't actually beat a god, so you die. Fear and Hunger 2, you fight a god, you beat the god, but it's obvious you can't actually beat a god, and you die. Or join the collective consciousness, I don't know. It's implied that you're not alive anymore, or you don't exist in the world anymore, because you're not on the train, you're in the machine now. Point is, we've done this. We've literally done this. It's almost exactly the same. Like, you know, I'm very hesitant a lot of the time to criticize indie games and indie devs because I'm a big fucking fan of indie devs, and I want to actually express a sentiment that I forgot to express during the series, at the end of the series, because there was a game I played recently, I can't remember what it was, but during that one, I expressed a strong sentiment about how AAA needs to step the fuck up because indie and like what you might call AA development, like, you know, indie that is, well, it's technically an indie development studio, but they're actually pretty fucking big, but they're not quite AAA. But the point is, these kind of studios are blowing AAA out of the water, and it's embarrassing for AAA. Not a single AAA company in recent memory has put out anything even half as interesting as Fear and Hunger. Not even half as interesting. The horror games, in comparison, the AAA have done to Fear and Hunger are weak. Seriously weak. Like, all the best you'll see in a horror game out of AAA nowadays will be some kind of jump scare fest, and guess what? Indie devs are guilty of that one too, but, you know, not every indie dev is faultless. The point is, I wanted to express the fact that, once again, AAA is being shown up in a major way by indie devs, but writing the same ending twice? Really? That's, I think, the biggest factor in what made Fear and Hunger 2's ending fall flat for me. It is just the same ending again. You couldn't come up with anything else? Like, it's not fair to Fear and Hunger. Like, you know, if Fear and Hunger 1 didn't exist and Termina was just a game on its own and there was no Fear and Hunger 1, would I have enjoyed the ending more? Possibly. Because the idea of, you know, the boss fight where you win but you lose because it's a god, it's a bit of a, it's not exactly a novel concept, but it's a little more unique than a lot of other endings, so I might have been able to appreciate that and been like, oh wow, we got absorbed into the machine. Yeah, we can't kill a god, it's a fucking god. But the problem, ladies and gentlemen, is I already had that experience in Fear and Hunger 1. And then we did it again, and I'm like, okay, sure. I almost kind of, like, the moment we beat the boss, I thought to myself, like, is it just going to be like a false victory? Where we're just going to be stuck in the machine? And then sure enough, it cuts to you being glittering green bullshit inside the machine, and I'm like, yeah, we lost, even though we won. You can only pull that shtick so many times before it gets frustrating. But it is, to me, just a little bizarre to have an ending that... I know it is set up in certain ways through different character stories, I get that, but it does still feel like Ending A really disregards a lot of what's going on in Termina, basically. You know, like, you basically can play the game from two perspectives. You're either leaning more towards the Relia shit, which means the Termina Festival means very little to you, or you play leaning more towards the Termina Festival, which means the Relia and Kaiser and Bremen shit means very little to you. And I don't know, I feel like we could have perhaps incorporated both a bit more. I ended up doing an ending where I leaned more towards where, you know, I went towards Logic and Relia, but my experience up to that point was more tuned towards the Termina Festival. But by the same token, I was playing as Dan, and Dan would only really get the relevant experience that he would have if you went for the Relia ending, because you need to go into the tunnels, and the only way you would meet Stitches is if you went into the tunnels, which is like the thing that's relevant to Dan, because there's no special dialogue with Pocket Cat if you're playing as Dan, I don't think. So you would need to be pursuing the Relia ending, but then not do it at the last second and go to the tower instead. But why would you go to the tunnels if you were going to the tower? There's no point. So it feels a little... I don't know, maybe this is something, an experience a bit more unique to Dan, I suppose. Maybe other characters interact with this a little better. It's worth pointing out that the game is still being updated and stuff. Like, it's full release, but it's not strictly speaking done. It's distinctly possible that the dev will add more stuff in the future. I should point out as well that I'm offering this level of criticism because I like the game so much. If I didn't like the game, and I was criticizing it, I probably wouldn't go into detail on my criticism. I'd just say, yeah, I don't like it. Instead of really talking about the save system and trying to figure out solutions, I'd have just said, yeah, I don't like the save system, I think it sucks, and I'd have been done with it. That's it. I wouldn't have expanded upon it anymore because I had no incentive or motivation to do so, because I don't care about the game, so why would I try and fix it, as it were. I really like Fear and Hunger, and that's why I really wanted to delve into what I perceive to be issues. Like, the stuff I'm talking about, other people might be like, nah, I felt the ending was fine, and if you do, great. I'm not speaking from a place of facts and logic. What I'm saying is not the reality of the ending. Just because I don't like ending A of Fear and Hunger 2 very much, or at least compared to Fear and Hunger 1, doesn't mean it's not a good ending. If you like it, fantastic. I imagine many people did. It has its merits, for sure. I just felt it was through those two aspects, I felt it was really lacking. The second one, I think, is especially damning. Simply the fact that we've already done this. But the two facets combine together to create a really strong feeling of underwhelming, from me specifically, because, like, not only have we done this, we've done it better. We've done it with more personal investment. That's what kicks the most. That's what hurts the most about it. And also, I looked into it. Fear and Hunger 2 does not have that many endings, right? Like, Fear and Hunger 1 has... Let me just get an accurate number for you guys. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 endings. And Termina, if you don't count each individual character's brief monologue, epilogue upon getting ending B, Termina has 3 endings. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think it'd be better to focus more on having good a small amount of good endings and a large amount of bad endings, as it were. But that's the problem. Ending A in Fear and Hunger 1 is better than ending A in Fear and Hunger 2. And Fear and Hunger 2 has less endings, so you'd think the endings would be better, but at least that one isn't. I don't know, I haven't done the other two, but I've looked into them and they were a bit... They seemed fine. They seemed like logical resolutions to how the game would go. I've looked into this stuff because I'm not planning on playing it again anytime soon. I made that clear at the end of the series. I'm making it doubly clear now. I have no intention to go back anytime soon. And if I do, it would be for shits and giggles, rather than to be like, okay, I want to experience more of the world and the story. I explored almost the entire fucking town. I'm pretty sure I didn't miss any real areas that I can think of. There are probably individual rooms and stuff that I missed, but like actual major areas, no. I think I hit them all except for the tower, because I didn't go in the tower because that would lock me into an ending, and I locked myself into a different ending. I say all this and really feel the need to reiterate once again that I really like Fear and Hunger 2. Fear and Hunger 2 is fantastic. It is such a good game. It's so well designed, especially in comparison to Fear and Hunger 1, which in many cases feels horribly designed, but is made up for by its interesting mechanics, game feel, atmosphere, and honestly, examples of good game design. Like, Fear and Hunger 1 does have good game design, it's just a lot of bad design too. And the shock value content, which is like, ugh, okay. But Fear and Hunger 2 is a vastly superior game. Straight up, you'll never hear me say otherwise, but I think Fear and Hunger 1 clinches the endings. I think maybe, right, this is a thought actually, maybe because Fear and Hunger 1 is such a painful experience, in every way. Maybe that's why the endings are better. Maybe that adds to it, right? Because you really struggle through Fear and Hunger 1, or at least I did. I struggled, maybe not so much in terms of gameplay towards the latter part of that series, because I kind of dusted my way through a lot of that stuff. Probably accidentally. I think I managed to accidentally dodge a lot of stuff. But I kind of dusted my way through Fear and Hunger towards the end. It was only the Heart of Darkness that really gave me much trouble, and that was limited. But maybe it's because, you know, mentally the game was painful. Trudging through that place, it was oppressive, it weighed down on me. Every cutscene felt like it was going to deliver something horrible, and sometimes it did. But just purely the expectation of something horrible occurring weighed down on me. A lot. Maybe that's why I feel the endings in Fear and Hunger 1 are better, because I suffered so much to get there that it was so gratifying to get there. I finally got there, and I was like, I'm done, I'm free, it's over, like, I'm out of the dungeon. My character isn't, my character's fucking dead at the bottom of a pit, but me, Foreman, am free. Goodbye, I'm out, like, see you later. Whereas Fear and Hunger 2 was a more enjoyable experience overall. Which meant when it came to the ending, I was like, okay, well, I'm not exactly desperate to leave this video game, you know? Like, I'm not clawing at the walls to get out. So, to have a slightly less impressive ending combined with the fact that I wasn't exactly dying to leave, maybe made it feel a little less evocative, a little less impressive. It resonated with me less. Resonated more in the first game because I was miserable and was free. I wasn't miserable, but I was suffering. The gameplay of Fear and Hunger 1 is fun, but the game itself is quite painful. I know it is kind of by intention, really. It's not supposed to be fun, really. It is fun in its own way, but it's also supposed to be an impressive experience. Whereas Fear and Hunger 2 is also an impressive experience, but it's more enjoyable because some of the fights are a lot better designed, and you can get a lot more powers, and, you know, it's more of an RPG. Fear and Hunger 2 is a lot more of a... Well, it's hard to say. There are many different definitions of what an RPG is, but Fear and Hunger 2 dips more into RPG mechanics of being able to improve your character, whereas Fear and Hunger 1 kind of is like, instead of stat bonuses, really flat stat bonuses, here are a small selection of incredibly powerful abilities. You're not going to get all of them. Use them wisely. And I like the RNG elements of, like, getting certain books, you know? I would hate it. I would actually dislike playing the game if it was like, okay, there's always a skin Bible in this location. There is always an Alchemilia in this location, because that would remove a lot of the fun. A lot of the fun is going up to a bookcase and being like, please, I need something, and then it's a fucking skin Bible, and you're like, oh, fuck yeah. That's exactly what I needed. It maintains the game's feeling of unfairness while also providing you with the potential to get extremely good rewards from mundane places. I heard there is a salmon snake, like, it's not literally the salmon snake soul, but there is the equivalent of the salmon snake soul in Fear and Hunger 2 that just straight up prevents limb loss and bleeding and shit. I didn't find it, but imagine if I did, right? I didn't need it in the end, so it wasn't a big deal, but imagine if I did find the salmon snake soul. That's a big fucking win. The games are cool. I like both of them for very different reasons. Very different reasons. I like Fear and Hunger 1 because I felt it was more of an emotional experience, and I don't just mean connection with the characters, although I will say that I felt infinitely more connected to the kid, Das, and Moonless than I did to Karen, Olivia, and Marco. Which is a shame, because Karen, Olivia, and Marco have more character development and personality, but I felt like I suffered a lot more with the kid, Das, and Moonless, and I felt like that developed more of a bond, you know? Felt like we had a pie dynamic going. I felt like, okay, I've got a dog, which naturally I would want to protect, a small child, which I'm obviously going to need to protect, and Das has been through some shit, like we rescued her from those fucking cave-dwelling monsters, and she seems pretty shaken up about it, and then she lost her husband, lover, person, whatever, her soulmate, I guess, so she needs help, so I kind of felt like I was spent a lot of the game doing my best trying to protect these people and keep them alive. And that created more of a bond for me. And like, it's not as if these characters were defenseless. Moonless does great damage. Moonless is solid. Das, I gave her some of the best weapons in the game. She fought very well. And the kid was a great support character. She pulled her weight. She really did. Whereas You know, the characters from Fear and Hunger 2 have more character and were better and were stronger, but maybe that's kind of the problem I have with some of the characters in Fear and Hunger 2, is that everyone feels too capable. In Fear and Hunger 1, you literally playing as like a battle-hardened mercenary, a barbarian, like a, once again, battle-hardened barbarian, an experienced knight, and a wielder of dark arcane powers, and they all feel extremely vulnerable. Like they could die at any moment. And when they are on the map, on the world, they also seem like they could die at any moment. Everyone in that game feels like they could die at any moment, and they seem scared and vulnerable, whereas in Fear and Hunger 2, everyone just felt like they were doing fine. Like, I know Tanaka can die really early on if you go to the bunker, for instance. And, you know, obviously him and Marco can get shot by Pav, but prior to their deaths, each character's individual deaths, they all just seem like they're doing fine. Like, your actions don't really matter, they can just kind of get on with their lives, and I don't know, I like the cast of Fear and Hunger 2, they just feel a little too capable, I guess. Whereas, ironically, the cast of Fear and Hunger 1 would probably be more capable in a direct comparison, but actually feel a lot weaker, a lot more vulnerable, and out of their depth. It's really hard to convey these feelings, to be honest. Like, I cannot stress enough that Fear and Hunger 2 is a superior game. It really is. And I prefer Fear and Hunger 2. 100%. I prefer playing it. I think if you could update Fear and Hunger 1 with Fear and Hunger 2's gameplay mechanics and new feel, Fear and Hunger 1 would be better. I would prefer Fear and Hunger 1, I should say. But the characters and the endings and kind of the story, I guess, in Fear and Hunger 1 just felt stronger, I suppose. I don't know, it's strange. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm kind of repeating myself and waxing lyrical now, so I think I will end it there. Let me know what you think. Like, none of what I've stated is fact, okay? Like, this show, right, Foreman Talks, entirely exists for me to expand upon opinions either I want to talk about or I feel like I didn't get to finish in a series, okay? These are opinions. These are just my thoughts and feelings based on the experiences I've had. I obviously haven't seen and done everything in Termina, so I could be missing major things. But from what I've read, from what I've seen, from what I've looked up, which isn't everything, but some things, I feel fairly affirmed in my statements. I feel like, regardless of the information which I missed in the series and later got, ending A still feels quite flat. It's cool. It's a cool ending, but it's still a bit flat. And ending A in Fear and Hunger 1 was better. And I guess I kind of prefer the characters in Fear and Hunger 1, but I wouldn't say they're better than the characters in Fear and Hunger 2. That is not the opinion I hold. My opinion is that I prefer the ones from 1. I just had a bit more of a connection with them. But the ones in 2 are better. Okay, they just are. Fear and Hunger 2 characters are better. That moment with Osa in the church was hilarious. That was super funny. I didn't think he was capable of that kind of sense of humor, but he was, and it was funny. There are other moments, but I can't honestly think of them right now. I think I had a couple funny exchanges with Karen, for instance, and Olivia's a sweetheart, and Marco is cool. And he's funny in his own way as well, but he's just a solid presence. The characters in Fear and Hunger 2 are great. They are. Not saying that the ones in 1 are better, I just prefer them. But yes, I'm repeating myself again. Let's end it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what you think. I'd be curious to hear it. If you try telling me I'm objectively wrong, or unless you have facts to back it up, I will ignore you, so keep that in mind. But I'd be curious to hear what you think. Thank you so much for watching. Special thanks to Zlol, Final Legend, Ethrabin, Linky, Zeon Cedar, Bimblewart, Tom King, Majoko Myman, Alkir, Honeydew Corporation, Sweet Baby Red, MB Alias, Lord Skellington, Jessicissy, Plutonium Pie, Dreamer Ghost, Leper Lullaby, K-Bub, Magical, The Frostbite, Monsoon, Warmaster Oku, SCP-106A, Namad, and Kenny T100 for supporting me on Patreon. Thank you so much, guys, and thank you all so much for listening. This, presumably, will be the last thing I post in regards to Fear and Hunger for a while. I mean, I can't read the future, I don't know what's gonna happen, but yeah, I have no intention to do anything else about Fear and Hunger. I just wanted to talk about it one last time to kind of wrap the series up, because the game definitely left an impression on me. Both games did. They're very cool. I know some people probably came here for Fear and Hunger and will probably depart once again now that it's over. No guilt tripping or judgment there. I hope you enjoyed my time in Fear and Hunger 1 and 2. I certainly did. They're both very cool games. And yeah. Gonna do different stuff in the future. I started doing my time at Sandrock because I needed something bright and cheerful to make up for all the dark, depressing misery of Fear and Hunger, and I have to say I've actually been enjoying Sandrock very much, but that's irrelevant. Whatever I do next time, I hope I see you there. Toodles, goodbye.